Rachel Joyce, welcome to the Great Big Book Club. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well.
Congratulations on your fantastic book, Miss Beeson's Beetle. Do you have a copy?
I do actually, which I'm very proud of. So look, I'm going to lift it up and it actually shimmers. I've never had a book that shimmers before. Let's see how it does. I'm very proud of that cover. Very, very proud.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's also a beautiful book. It's a sort of fantastic quest, female friendship. I mean, it's the most beautiful book. So do tell us a bit about the plot.
It's basically set in 1950. It starts off in Britain, rationing still, and everything quite broken. And it's about Marjorie Benson, who's had this kind of lifelong passion to go and find a beetle, a tiny gold beetle, which may or may not exist. But if it does, it's the other side of the world on an island called New Caledonia. So she advertises, she walks out on a job, advertises for an assistant, everything goes wrong, ends up with the last woman in the world she would want to go with, who is her absolute opposite. And off they go to New Caledonia, where they must trek through tropical rainforest in order to find, perhaps, this exquisite gold beetle. But it's really about this dynamic, extraordinary friendship that develops between these two really unlikely women.
It's the most extraordinary story. I mean, how do you begin to come up with an idea like this? I mean, you're not an entomologist for a start. So where do you start with something like this? Did it appear, the idea, did it come to you in your sleep? I mean, how did it happen?
I find with me that ideas for books kind of come from a number of places. It's like little seeds, all over the place, and then they kind of grow into this one thing. So I did know that this time I really wanted to write a book where I put women at the center. I felt very, very strongly that that was what I wanted to do and needed to do. So there was that little pot boiling. But then years and years ago, I heard somebody on the radio being interviewed about cryptozoology, about which I knew nothing, which is as far as I understand, it's the science, but everybody says it isn't a science, the search for animals whose existence hasn't yet been proved. So the Loch Ness Monster is right at the far end. And this poor man who was being interviewed was being given a really hard time for being a bit doolally, really. And I just thought, that's really interesting. How do you go about looking for something that doesn't exist? That takes knowledge, but that takes imagination. And then I kind of went off on it. And then I thought, well, it's not really my style to go looking for the Loch Ness Monster. I'm more on the small scale of things. And then I just thought, beetle, something that you could tread on, that's where I'll go. So then I realized I had to find out about the world of beetles, and I went on another whole big journey, and I did find out a lot and spoke to so many experts who gave me far too much of their time. And then, the thing began to take shape. And then there was New Caledonia, about which I knew absolutely nothing.
And I presume you didn't actually travel to New Caledonia?
No, I did think, at one point I thought I should, the way you do. And then you think, oh, is this just an excuse not to really get on with writing the thing? And then I thought, actually, if you do enough research, you can find out about this island. And actually, it's not a travel piece. It's a quest story, as you said. So you've really got to make the detail then fit in with the story as opposed to the other way around. So even though I would have loved to have gone, and it's not likely I'm going to go for a while now, I didn't.
But tell me a bit about the lovely Marjorie. I mean, she's a beautifully observed character, and she starts off from the most miserable of circumstances in their she walks out of her job because she's being bullied by her own pupils in her school. I mean, how do you come up with a character like that? Tell me a bit how you developed her?
I found Marjorie remarkably easy, to be honest. I mean, I think she is an introverted quiet person, and I was quite interested in exploring the relationship between introverts and extroverts, and how we need one another, you know, and how you have to find that, you know, what you don't have in yourself. But Marjorie really reminded me of well, a lot of teachers I had when I was at school, a lot of single women who'd given themselves to, you know, to education. Aunts I had when I was a child, who I look back and think they weren't actually aunts, but they were friends of my grandmother's. They were unmarried women who'd lost brothers, husbands, fathers, sweethearts, you know, in the First World War and the Second, and who led quite hidden lives, I felt. So I really wanted to that was why I went, you know, to that time. I was quite interested in that time, post Second World War anyway, when everything should be, everybody thinks everything is going to be better, and actually it's tough. It's really, really tough. And what you're dealing with is the kind of aftermath.
It's like the sort of the long tail of the Second World War, isn't it? And that sort of lost generation of people who should be living the best life, but I mean, they've got no money, they've got no prospects, and also that huge depression. I mean, the terrible story about what happens to her father right at the beginning of the book. I don't know if we're allowed to say.
I think we're allowed to say. I mean, it is. If you pick up the book and read the first 3 pages, you will find.
Yes. So her father kills himself after the news of her brothers dying in the war, and it's just very profound. And you think that these stories will happen to all over the country at the time, didn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think it must have been an extraordinarily broken time. I have a feeling that my grandmother, not the one with the friend who was an aunt, but the other grandma, actually married the friend of the man she would have married. And I think it was, you know, because the man she was going to marry was killed. And I think it was a very unhappy marriage, really, really unhappy. And I can't believe that she was the only one.
Yes, I imagine. Now, which brings me neatly on to Enid Pretty, who is I mean, you've clearly had great fun with this character. I mean, right down to what she wears, and so where does she come from in your imagination?
Enid Pretty just turned up. I think Enid is the woman I need in my life, really. You know, because she's so brave and courageous and herself, and she walks, you know, she just attracts danger, attention, you know, trouble wherever she goes. But I mean, she's a huge talker. She loves life. She has this tremendous appetite. And whereas I'm always a little kind of, I'm probably a bit more like Eeyore in my day-to-day dealings, you know, Enid just has this fantastic go kind of energy. And in writing the book, I think the two of them together became, I mean, I'm not going to say they were guiding me in any way, because I don't really think like that, but I felt their energy, and it was supposed to be a really quiet, tender, beautiful little book. That's what it was supposed to be. But I think something about putting those two women, those two energies together, just turned it into the most extrovert thing I've ever written. It was as if my imagination just went off with them, and you know, and I just had to run behind.
But they're a great double act, aren't they, the pair of them?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I hope they're a kind of inspirational double act, because they bring out the best in one another, and I think it's because they're not afraid.
But it is that lovely idea of sort of a quest, wanting discovery, being brave. It's a very optimistic book.
Yes, it is. It is a very optimistic book. And I could think, again, that was partly the energy of the two women, because I didn't always think it was going to be that way. And also in writing it, actually, one of the other things I did was that I did know I wanted to write a female adventure story. I felt there were so many male adventure stories. So I read loads of them, you know, all with men. And then thought, well, how can I, you know, use this for two unlikely women? And I did throw every obstacle at them that I could imagine, and quite a few that I didn't even see coming. but I mean, I think that adds to the energy of it, really.
How fascinating! So you research sort of the male quest story in order to write the female quest story.
Exactly. And I just thought, well, what can I take? What can I learn?
What did you take and learn?
Well, it was mostly about being very brave about the obstacles, and that I put and kind of thinking, okay, I cannot see how they're possibly going to get out of this scrape. Okay, put that one in then. See what you can do with that. So sometimes I think as a writer, you shy away from things. You think, oh no, I just can't. I can't really go there. But I mean, I did find myself putting more and more, some of them are quite out there, quite wild obstacles, to see how I and they would deal with it.
Brilliant. I mean, amazing. Well, it was worked beautifully. It's highly entertaining and actually very funny, which I wasn't expecting.
Good. But these things happen.
Tell me, you were nominated for the Booker longlist with your debut book, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fay. What was that like?
Oh, it was a pretty amazing thing. It felt like it felt like a huge honor, and it is a huge honor. And but I mean, I think at the same time, I managed to just kind of keep it in its place. I didn't for one moment think I was actually going to walk away with a Booker Prize. So it was just lovely to be in that basket for a little while. And I think the other thing about success is that if you have your head on, and most of us do, it's temporary. So I think the danger, you kind of think, well, don't go along too far with this. Just go with it for now, for what it is, but then be ready for it not to be like that, because it won't be. So I was very wary about getting overexcited about anything, but because I think I am quite quiet, I was able to just enjoy it and then say goodbye to it. But I was still nominated.
I know. But because you were an actress before you started writing, you must have thought, well, this writing lark is really easy. I mean, look at it, straight first one out, and I'm on the Booker long list. I mean,
this is good. I didn't quite think like that, but I had spent so many years in the theatre. I love the theatre. I really miss the theatre. I think that's one of the things I've missed most. And that's one of the things I really, really worry about. But anyway, coming from that background, I did know what it was like for people to kind of be the thing 1 minute. And then, the next minute their agent is saying, actually, we can't even get anything made with you in it. I'd seen it happen to so many friends. So I think you just have to be wary of that.
And do you think it's a good background for a writer? I mean, it's dealing with story on a daily basis. It's dealing with dialogue on a daily basis, and it's also you're inhabiting other personalities. I mean, it's probably quite a good training.
I think it's a brilliant training. I think it is, because as you say, you have such an awareness of story, but you also, I think, especially in the theatre, you know what it means to enchant an audience. That moment as the lights go down and everybody goes quiet and there's so much expectation, and that you're going on a journey with some storytellers, hopefully. And I think it's exciting for the audience, as it is exciting for the actors and backstage. Everybody knows you're just about to do something just now that will be over in an hour and a half. And that need that there is right at the beginning to take the audience, to kind of, I think enchant is the best word I can think of. It's something that I've really thought about I've been writing for radio for years, so I really think about that with radio. But definitely with the novel, how do you create that spell right from the start that makes somebody pick up the first page and stay with you?
Yeah, well, exactly. And what's your process like then, for example? So you had your idea for the Beetle. You befriend the Beetle people, and And then what? How do you begin with a book like this?
It's always the same for me. It's almost, I was thinking about it this morning and I thought it's almost as if like the first moments when you've met someone you quite like and you're sort of not going to commit to one another. So it's as if the story is going to kind of reveal itself in little fragments to see if it likes you. And you might write down little bits just to see if you like it, but you're not really either of you going to say, yeah, we're together, until you've got, I don't know, something happens for me and I think, oh yes, there's the voice of this I get, because I think the voice of every book is slightly different, you know, or there's something about the characters. You think, yes, there's something about and I had it with these two women. I have to go with these two women. I think they've got something to tell me. So that's my kind of process, really. It's, you know, because at the moment I haven't got a book on my desk, but I can feel that I'm flirting with a few books and they're sort of flirting with me, and none of us are saying, you know, we're not saying, you know, we're going to, you know, it's not happening just yet.
It's like being a couple of teenagers on a date.
It is.
That's very funny. But then do you plan? Do you have chapters? Do you work it all out? Adele Parks always says that she interviews her characters so that she puts them in the hotspot and basically, you know, she knows what their favorite color is, etc. Even if she never uses it in the book. I wonder how much depth you go to when you're writing.
I mean, I feel I go, you know, right in there with them, but then it's a question of taking a lot of it out again, because actually what was necessary for me to know isn't necessary for the reader to know. You know, if you know, once you know your characters so well that you know what they would think, you know, from moment to moment, you can start withdrawing stuff, because I think then, you know, the reader will get it. But I in terms of planning, I sort of plan after I've written it. You know, it's almost as if I begin to see, I can't, if I plan, I never really am able to stick to the plan, because for me, the plan is outside, it's not inside. And it's only once I get inside that I really feel, you know, I know where the book is going to head. Having said that, I often write the ending way before I've got there. And I know that the ending is the kind, the beginning and the ending, I always feel, are as far from one another as they can possibly be, but they're like a call out to one another. So for me, not having an ending is like going out with a huge bag of stuff that you've got completely open, you know, like you could just drop things wherever you go. So I like to know where I'm going, but I have no idea how I'm going to get there.
And have you been productive in your lockdown? Have you actually been doing any work? I mean, you know, are you locked down with children, or are you blissfully free?
No, everybody came home. And that was great. And it was great that we could look after them, you know, and we could feed them. It was all, you know, we're full house. And at the beginning of lockdown, well, I thought, this is just the same as normal. I'm working at home. I always did work at home. So, you know, there's not really much difference. But actually, I found it a really difficult time to try and be creative. And I think it's because we're kind of living in such a paradox. We're living with, everything seems ordinary on some levels, and yet everything is completely not ordinary. And I think living with, you know, not knowing is a very unsettling kind of place in which to try and write. So every day I come out here and I do try, but with varying degrees of success.
Yes. And have you decided which of the flirty stories you're going to go with for your next one?
No, it varies on a daily basis. But actually, I'm writing two screenplays, one for Harold Fay and one for my last book, The Music Shop. So actually, I've got work on my desk that I'm supposed to do, and I am trying to do it. It's just that I'm not finding it as easy as I normally would.
So Harold Fry's been optioned then, has it? For
Yes, yes. And so has the music shop, which is exciting, you know, really exciting. And because I've got that background in theatre and then all those years of writing for radio, I'm really enjoying the experience of writing a screenplay. And I think in a very, very visual way anyway. So it's a bit of a gift.
And have they cast anybody yet? Is out for because the Harold Fry is the most extraordinary story, isn't it? It's sort of a
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it is. I mean, I think the thing for me is that he's just a very ordinary man. Um, so I guess in the film, he mustn't seem like somebody who can get to the other side of Britain, you know, the moment he steps out of his front door. I think that's my main requirement. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I have no idea who will be cast. And the longer this goes on, of course, you know, who the people who might have been appropriate, all right, no longer are. At one point, I thought if it goes on too long, I'll play Maureen. No, I won't really.
and you must be pleased with the reaction to Miss Benson's Beetle. You've had some lovely reviews already. And it seems to be going down a storm on Goodreads, actually, which is really where it matters.
Well, it terrifies me, Goodreads. It really, really scares me. So I'm delighted it's going. I try not to look because I do find it so, because people are so, you know, honest about what they feel. And I think with a new book, actually with any book, but especially with a new book, it's so tender that I don't know that I'm ready to kind of know what people really think of it. I mean, I'm still working out what it is. Yeah, but if it's getting good reviews, I'm delighted. I'm really delighted.
Well, it's a fantastic, fantastic book, and thank you so much for joining us today. Could you just show us the cover one more time, because it is a work of art?
Yes, I certainly will. Look, it's going to come in front of my face. There we go. Look.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.